Good evening and welcome to I'm Listening, Stay Connected. I'm Listening is a 24/7, 365 initiative that works to destigmatize talking about mental health, and that's why we're here. Got a great show planned for you. We have AJ Gibson from The Morning Show, also a speaker and author, and Doc Halligan, veterinarian and author as well, talking about the intersections of mental health and owning a pet. If you want to join the conversation, you can always do so by sending your questions to hashtag I'm Listening or in the Loveline IG page DMs. Let's start the show by talking, of course, about mental health. Listen, mental health is more than just your emotional health. Our mental health is woven into every aspect and domain of our lives. So that also includes our relationships to our body. Now, right now, I'm telling everyone I want you to focus on rest and healing. And we're talking a lot about not buckling under the weight of all those posts and discussions and memes about being hyperproductive in this time. It is okay if you come out of this without learning a second language or a college degree. And the same thing has to go for our bodies. I don't want us coming out of this with a collective level of body shame. You do not need to find a way to return to your pre-corona body. You do not need to have a gym body in order to be physically or psychologically healthy. That is not the goal. And for some individuals, that is actually very unhealthy for them. However, I do want us to be moving and exercising, and that's going to look like something different for all of us. So find something that you do enjoy doing, because movement and exercise is an important part of biological and mental health, but we don't want to shame ourselves, again, into believing that we have to meet a certain aesthetic in order to be physically or psychologically healthy. And finally, I want us to focus also on mental exercise. That means reading, reflecting, journaling, thinking, watching some things that are stimulating intellectually. So again, it's all about the mind and the body, just not the hyper focus on the body as our culture tends to tell us. And finally, it's okay to unfollow the social media or any other level of media that's telling you that the body you have isn't okay, or that there's a certain way you need to come out of this looking, because again, that is absolutely detrimental to our mental health. Now let's talk with AJ Gibson, host of The Morning Beat on We Are Channel Q. What's going on, AJ?
How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Thanks for being a part of our show.
Thanks for having me.
So I always like to open by asking, how is your mental health right now?
It's good, I think. It's really improved the last week or so. I'm definitely not trying to get my pre-corona body back. However, I started running again, and I haven't done that in quite a while. And just getting outside and breathing fresh air has really helped me. So I'm in a good place. I feel like I've sort of built for a quarantine. I've sort of prepared for this my entire life. I've struggled, as you know, with mental health in the past, but I don't mind being a homebody. I'm more of an introverted extrovert, I think. So I think I'm handling it pretty well most days.
Okay. I love hearing that. And let me ask you this. So you're someone who hosts a morning show. Morning shows traditionally provide news, but they also carry the weight of not only entertainment, but I think humor and positivity. It's the way we kind of start our day. So how have you been managing the seriousness of what's happening, attending to your own mental health, and also trying to provide positivity and humor?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I've worked primarily in television for so many years, and this is my first, crack at radio. And I've only been with Channel Q. I started at the end of December, early January, and yeah, the morning beat. It's a blend of so many different things, and people do tune in to get news from us, but they also want to have a good time. They want to be entertained. They want to be inspired. They want to hear about news going on in our community. So finding that balance has been tricky. I signed up for this thing thinking, we're coming into the fall or in the spring, we're going to Coachella. Then we've got Pride season. We're going to be in Palm Springs all the time. And then all of a sudden we're in a global pandemic. But my co-host, Michaela, as you know, has been incredible through all of this. And luckily I've known Michaela for 12 years. So we've found a sort of a rhythm that's working for us. But it's difficult. We're both going through things in our own lives as well as, what's going on with the world. And then to kick off every day together and try to, inform and entertain at the same time isn't always easy. But I feel like more often than not, we live up to the task.
Beautiful. Yeah, I find a lot of joy in listening to the two of you, and Michaela Gordon is phenomenal. I cannot not smile or laugh when I'm around that girl and think of her. So what a great co-host. So let's also talk about trying to work from home, because I think one of the most powerful things I heard is the reframe that we're not working from home. We're in a pandemic while trying to also get some work done. So how are you managing that piece?
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on our show, actually, and remind our listeners that, we're not working from home. Whether you have kids or you don't have kids or you have roommates or whatever situation, you're by yourself and you're kind of going through it, we're not working from home. We're trying to survive a global pandemic and get something done. So for the first few weeks, it was really difficult for our show to figure out. We were the first show on Channel Q outside of yours, I believe, that figured out how to do this thing. And the way we started doing it was very different from how we're doing it now. We've now moved over to Zoom. We were still broadcasting together, socially distanced, in Michaela's home for a few weeks. And, staying safe, washing our hands all the time, wearing masks, not hugging each other or interacting with each other. And that just got to be too difficult. Life started happening for all of us. And so for the past couple of weeks, luckily, we've been able to switch things up and figure out how to do it from home via Zoom, which has been a godsend. And it's eased a lot of the anxiety. It's a wild time when you're sort of anxious and afraid to step into a space with people that you love and care about, because you don't know, one, if maybe they picked up something somewhere. You don't know if it really tests your trust level with people. Do you trust that they've not interacted with anybody else? And then on the flip side, maybe I could have picked up something at the store, or God forbid, going for a walk, and I don't want to, pass on something to one of my co-hosts or my producer. So it was sort of a weird mental head game we were playing for the first few weeks of this thing. Luckily, now we're all working from home and we feel much better, and the show feels just more sort of like settled and grounded now, I think.
Beautiful. I mean, I know I felt that as well. It's a new level of care and concern. I had to turn my clinical practice over to telemedicine, so I'm doing it over phone and Skype. And some of my patients at first pushed back on that, and they're like, we want to see you in real time. And I just had the same worries you had. What am I touching? What are they touching? Can you sanitize a couch and a doorknob? And it just becomes exhausting.
I just went to the dentist today, and I had an appointment. I have Invisalign, so I have to get new trays every couple of months. And I was supposed to have an appointment last week, and I was like, I'm good. And they emailed me back and they say, hey, we understand your concern. However, we've implemented all sort of safety steps. So when I got there, they had me call. They said, we'll call you as soon as there's nobody in the lobby. So they only allow one person in the lobby at a time. I walk in, they're all standing there with their PPE on, their face mask, their everything, and gloves. And I walk in, they hand me I don't even know what it was, like hydrogen peroxide or something. I think they said it was like some sort of mouthwash. They said, go right into the restroom, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, swish this in your mouth, and then come back out and we'll get started. And that made me feel really great. And it's, a couple extra simple steps that a month or 2 months ago might have seemed ridiculous. But today they made me feel a little bit safer. So I was, I went to the dentist and I was out of there in 20 minutes and I felt good about it.
Yeah, it's a good reminder, because I had some clients that were asking that, or calling into the show as well. Is it safe to go see my primary care physician because I have a need, or urgent care? But more importantly, as a son of a dentist, got to keep that teeth health. You know what I mean? Oral health.
Yeah. Look, this is my moneymaker. I got to do what I can.
This face is on camera, baby. But there's also a powerful connection in the research between the bacteria in our mouths and our general heart health and inflammation. So, no joke, joking aside, oral health care is part of total health care.
Yeah, I don't let myself even get near a cavity. For that exact reason. I read up so much on it years ago. When I was in my 20s, I remember going 3 or 4 years one time without even getting a teeth cleaning, because I was in my 20s and I didn't care. And then I had a couple of cavities, and I learned about it, and I was like, I get my teeth cleaned every 4 months now. So
well done. So let's now switch gears and talk a little bit about love. How are you pulling off love and relationality in the COVID pandemic? Because, again, like you were saying with your co-host Michaela from the morning show, we have anxiety about other people's boundaries and touching. And so when we're self-isolating or in a relationship with someone, it's a trust factor we now have with them as well.
Yeah, so luckily, my partner and I have been together for nearly 8 years now, and we lived together for almost that entire time, and we both are working from home. That's been actually more difficult to navigate than the actual love part. The working from home, he basically sets up a studio. He's on camera every day. He works for Clever News for Hearst Media, so he's in the living room setting up his studio. I start working at 4:30 a.m. I'm at my desk. He switches and works from 7 to 10, and then I come back out here and do a second round of work, and then he just went and shot something else again. So we kind of rotate back and forth. So the work part's actually been the trickier part. The love part, oddly enough, look, I already know I'm going to marry this guy. Oh. I had a whole plan set into motion. Coronavirus has kind of adjusted that now, I think. But what this has shown me, this has actually been a gift for us. And I know this is not true for many couples, but for us, we've gotten so much closer through this. We've had deeper conversations. We've really relied on each other. And we said from day one, look, if you get this, I'm probably going to get this. And if I get this, you're probably going to get this. So just so you know, if anything happens to you, I'm not leaving your side. We live together in an 1,100 square foot apartment. We're not getting away from each other. So we kind of laid that groundwork right out the gate. And we've gotten to know each other in a different way, which I've really enjoyed. I actually oddly, in some ways, have really enjoyed this entire sort of self-quarantining process.
It's beautiful. I'll tell you, couples therapy wise, it's in times of conflict that we really learn what trust is, and we learn whether or not we have longevity with this person, and we learn if we're going to make it. Well done. That was really beautiful. It was really sweet.
And also there's Netflix. That's really been helpful too. So, and lots of wine. I'm not saying
right.
I'm Sauvignon Blanc.
Any kind of intimacy buffer we can throw in there just kind of eases it all up a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book, Flipping the Script, Bouncing Back from Life's Rock Bottom Moments. I mean, that's a powerful title. Powerful material. What things can we pull out of that might be relatable and helpful tips for those struggling right now with self-isolation and mental health?
Yeah, hopefully a lot. A lot of people when reaching out to me, it kind of comes in waves. Randomly, I hear from people who picked up my book along the way, or they started reading it, and I've gotten a lot of messages lately. People are finding a lot of free time, so I think I was maybe number 2 or 3 or 4 on their list, and they're making it to me now, which I appreciate. But I wrote this book out of my own sort of rock bottom moment. Back in 2015, 2016, I was working on a national talk show on Fox called Hollywood Stay Live. I was the host of that, and I was fired. I was replaced, and it was the first time I'd ever been fired from something so publicly. It was in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, and it was a weird sort of process for this young guy from a small town in Ohio to go through. My sister also, my best friend in the world, we kind of came back to faith later in life. We were raised Catholic, and then I was kind of an atheist for like 15 years. And then she and I found our way back to faith, got baptized together. But from that moment, we went in very different directions. And so she started sort of what I felt was judging my sexuality for the first time in our lives. And that was a lot. And then I also received a tax bill one night when I was home alone on a Saturday night in October, because I had filed a 6-month extension, October 16th, 2016, for $16,631. That nearly sent me out my 10th floor window out of my bathroom. And all those things happened within a short distance of one another, and it was too much. It all felt like a snowball effect was starting to happen in my life, and I felt like there was no way out. I felt like that $16,000 might have well have been $16 million at that time, having lost my job and my best friend right before. And I kind of just sat with my feelings for about a year. And the only person who really knew the story was my partner, Emil. I didn't even tell my parents. I didn't talk to my sister about it. Obviously, we weren't really talking that much. And a year to the day later, actually, I flew home to my hometown in Ohio on a writing sabbatical for 2 weeks, because I thought writing sabbaticals are what people do. I'm thinking Hemingway, or I'm thinking the greats. I'm thinking, how do they do this process? So I went back home to Ohio, started writing the book, and 1 year later to the day, I remember I was in New York City doing press for the book, and I was on my good buddy Sway Calloway. He hosts TRL and Sway in the Morning on Sirius XM. And he had me on there to talk about my book. And I said, it's wild. A year ago today, I wrote the first word for this book. And 2 years ago today, I almost jumped out my window of my bathroom. And so the book is written actually as a script in some ways, playing on my time in Hollywood, interviewing stars on red carpets and, having my own talk show. And so each chapter sort of opens up as a screenplay. So there's the setting, we pan in on a man sitting at his desk, interior, day, that. It sort of sets the tone. And my little sister Mackenzie actually wrote the intros to all of my chapters. But then the chapters, so the book is not written sequentially. It's written as a screenplay. We don't live linearly, right? And so it pulls from different experiences throughout different points in my life. I tell my coming out story. I tell the story of me moving to Hollywood for the first time. I tell this ridiculous story of hosting this award show, and Stevie Wonder had to perform 3 times because the sound kept going out. And it was all these ridiculous things. But each chapter sort of has a theme, something that fell apart in my life during that moment or that period, or that season of my life. And then at the end of each chapter, I've created what are called script rewrites, which is a common, term used, in Hollywood. But I played on that, and I use them to create these sort of easily accessible, actionable items that my readers can do in real time. So as they're reading me flip my script, they can flip their script right along with me. And my readers can actually log on to ajgibsontv.com, and there's a clickable, downloadable PDF that they can go follow me on my journey. And as I flip my script, they can flip theirs. And at the end, they can print it out. It's actually a tangible copy of their own script that they've flipped, so that maybe, down the road, a week or a month or a year down the road, and they forget who they are, they forget who they actually are, who they aspire to be, they can look back at that script and be like, oh, that's who I am. Now I remember.
Beautiful. I love that concretizing, finding a benchmark you can go back to. But, more importantly, the resilience in that story. I'm glad you had that. And thank you for being so vulnerable and willing to share that with us tonight, but also on paper. I mean, what a gift to all of us. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I sometimes can't believe I wrote it. It's 300 pages, and I'm like, how did I write that many words? But it's to this point in my life, it's my most proud accomplishment.
Oh, I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had some questions that came in that I'd love for you to answer with us.
Sure.
This one asks, I feel insecure talking about feelings because I'm considered a masculine kind of dude, and I know others can relate. How do I respond to people who make fun of me for showing vulnerable emotions without going off on them? So I like that they at least are swooping in the understanding that it's always about the care and compassion.
Yeah, I feel like I relate to that on a deep level. I was an athlete in high school and through college, and I always thought that I was like, I didn't really fit in the community because I felt like, no, I'm more manly than that, whatever that means. And it took me a long time to get to a place where I was really comfortable in my own skin. I think everything when it comes to like self-love and accessing those emotions at all, everything starts with some grace, showing grace for yourself and showing grace for others as well. Understanding that if somebody doesn't understand or is not able to meet you in a place where you can talk about emotions freely and comfortably, or if they feel like they need to judge you, it's easy to want to go off. But that also says more about them than it says about you. And showing others grace and understanding that maybe they're at a different place in their life or a different point in their journey, that's okay. And you don't need you don't even need their understanding or acknowledgement to know who you are and to know what feels right to you. If it feels good to talk about emotions, and it generally does, if you get to a comfortable place, then go for it. And I think that too many times, like the mask type of gay men feel, and this is men in general, to be honest, feel that we have to shoulder so much and keep so much inside to look like we have it all together. And to me, that's actually an unattractive quality. I like a man who can be open and honest about emotions. I think it's sexy. I think it's very masculine. I think it's very mature. And to me and to others, it sounds like if this person is trying to be more open to the type of guy he's looking for, maybe that person's also going to recognize their strength in being vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, feelings, it's just the most honest, authentic part of us often, right? So to express that self is just such a gift you offer yourself and the other people. Thank you. It was really beautifully said. Here's another question I'd love for you to answer with us. This one asks, how do you change your life when you aren't sure where to start? Been feeling like I need to turn some stuff around, but it's hard to pinpoint what changes actually need to be made.
Yeah, I get that one a lot. So I travel the country giving like as a motivational speaker often, and I created a 4-step proprietary system called the MOVE method. Super simple. It started the night in my bathroom that I almost jumped out my window, and it began with me finding myself standing in front of my bathroom mirror, crying, just looking deep into my eyes and asking myself, like, "What's up? Like, who are you? How did you get here?" And I believe that for me, like I call that my mirror moment. That's where things started, in my mirror. And I created the 4-step system that starts with you just kind of looking in the mirror and just asking yourself those types of questions. And then also owning your stuff, like owning your part in your situation, owning your part in the reality that you're currently in or the season you're in your life, and answering some really, really tough questions. And then once you get some answers to those questions, you move on to V, which would be visualizing the life that is possible for you, the life that you've dreamt of for yourself, not the one that your friends or family have dreamt of for you. And then once you get a clear picture of what that is, you have like a game plan. You can put one foot in front of the other and just take a step and start to evolve, which is E. Move towards that future. I think so oftentimes we get so scared and fear holds us back and we just don't move at all. And whether it's emotionally, relationally, physically, spiritually, however you need to get moving again, it's just one little step. And what I found over and over and over again is that just making movement in some direction, even if it's the wrong direction, is so much better than not moving at all. Because what happens is, even if you take a step in the right direction or the wrong direction from time to time, a new path is going to reveal itself. You just have to have the guts to trust the universe, trust God, whatever it is that you believe in. You have to have the guts to trust that a little bit and just move it in any direction. And then life will get rolling again.
Beautiful. AJ Gibson, thank you so much for being a part of our show. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Be well. I love that message. And that's what I love for people to do at this time. Again, if you come out of this period with nothing more than having rested and taken a break, that's great. But for a lot of us, as I said earlier in the show, we can do some of that mental exercise, right? Which is as important as the physical exercise. And that can be, as we said, journaling, having deeper conversations, sitting with yourself, some of the material you're reading that has more of a transformative component to it. But there's always work we can be doing on ourselves. And I like that piece. No matter what the change is, as long as you're in some kind of process, you'll start to feel like you're making some advancements and shifts. I have a question that came in, and if you want to join the conversation, you can send your questions to our Loveline DMs, or you can tweet it at #I'mListening, and we'll be answering those throughout the show and also throughout the shows during this week. This one asks, I live alone and never felt so lonely, even though I talk to many people daily. I'm an introvert, so this is a new feeling. How do I get through this? Well, I always frame any question that's coming in as this is a new experience, because even though you might be checking with people daily, we are still not necessarily seeing them in real time. We're not able to make eye contact. We're not able to touch them. And there's a lot more weight to everything that's going on. And a lot of us are encountering a lot of anxiety and depression that isn't large enough or clinical enough for us to necessarily acknowledge that's happening, and that can kind of dampen and darken some of our moods and our psychological experiences. So give yourself a little bit of a break, but I applaud you for continuing to reach out to people. Maybe just focus on shifting who you're reaching out to or the types of conversations you're having while you're talking with them. Because if we can be more vulnerable and share our emotions, not only are we working on our mental health, but that's when we really feel like we're building intimacy, when we're kind of hitting that edge and we're sharing to a point of making us a little anxious. That's when I know intimacy is happening, when we have a little of anxiety because we're really dropping deep. And that's when we feel like we're truly present and connecting with someone. All right, now we're going to be joined by Doc Halligan, veterinarian, author, and celebrity spokesperson. Doc Halligan, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for being part of the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm very excited.
So I wanted to start off by asking you about mental health and having a pet. I know that there's a powerful connection between the two. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, it really is the positive power of pets. There is data, there are studies that show basically people who have a pet live longer. They are like emotional vitamins. It's just this unconditional, unjudgmental love that makes you feel good. And especially during times of pandemics, illness, that's when we really can rely on our pets. They need us and we need them. And we've seen a huge increase in people getting, especially puppies and kittens. I've been working safely at a practice and I've never seen so many puppies in my life. So I think people are out there, feeling lonely and saying, I think I'm going to go get a puppy.
I love that. And I think we undervalue that sometimes, where we think that only a human can provide certain levels of intimacy or companionship, but it's not true. We just want to be seen. We want to cuddle. We want to hug. To pet an animal is so soothing to our nervous system. So if someone did want to get a pet and they have never been a pet owner before, what do they need to look for?
Well, it has to be a family decision. I mean, if you live by yourself, then that's a different story. But if there's more than one person in the family, you have to all sit down and talk about it. Now, there's pros and cons to getting a puppy versus an adult dog. There's differences between a puppy versus a kitten versus a cat. You might want to just get a bird,
That's true.
Right?
Actually.
Start out with a bird. But so I always say the family needs to sit down and talk about it because it's a big commitment. Pets are living around 16 years, and there is a little bit of a financial commitment that you have to take into account.
Thank you for pointing that part out, because I think people underestimate or value that part.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they can be costly. A lot of the times, though, it's prevention. You see people, they're not walking their dog on a leash. The dog gets out, gets hit by a car. They don't spay or neuter it. Then it gets knocked up. They feed it bones or, pork and it gets sick. So, if you have a good veterinarian and you practice prevention, it doesn't have to be that expensive, but it is a little bit of an expense. And if you get a dog that has to get groomed, that has a continuous coat, that's another $75 every 6 weeks. So you really have to think about, okay, what's my budget? Why do I want a pet? Do I want a pet that I could take running, or do I want it to be more of a couch potato? Do I want a pet to help with the kids. Speaking of which, the studies all show that children have a better emotional connection when they're raised with a pet. I know that helped me because my childhood was a little turbulent, and I always went to the pets when my parents were fighting and there was a lot of stuff going on. I would go to the pets, and I think it's one of the reasons I became a veterinarian is that the dogs were there when I was afraid.
I mean, what a beautiful source of unconditional love, right? A pet is always available, always open to receive you. And I could see where that could be very psychologically healing, especially in tumultuous times. Talk to me about the whole like dog person, cat person. If someone has never been a pet owner, is there such a distinction, and does it matter? Because I never had pets, and then I got a cat, and then all of a sudden I was labeled cat person. And I was like, well, let me be maybe all kinds of pet person. So should people try to figure out which one they are, or should they just go for what makes sense to them?
No, there's no stigma. I mean, there used to be like the crazy cat lady,
Thank
the
you.
woman running around with curlers in her hair.
That's me.
It's like insane. And yes, I mean, it's just set. No, think about what are the pluses and minuses. There's a much bigger time commitment to a dog because you have to walk it, right? You have a cat, right? You don't have to walk them. They have less health problems. Now, the bond is different between a cat and a dog. There is a little bit of a difference with that too. Dogs, I think, are more needy. So, if you're really looking for that, you want something that you can, exercise with and stuff, you're going to go for a dog. But if you want, a lot of love and affection, lower maintenance, 2 kittens, I mean, you could be having the worst day and watching 2 kittens go absolutely bonkers. That's why when you watch YouTube, the cat videos have it. By far.
Team cat video. Yeah, it's true. I only have one. I'm not looking for two.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes, cute one cat only videos.
Mhm.
So let's talk about some of the news, because I saw yesterday and today that both the first cats in the first domestic pet was a cat in New York that tested positive, and then today a pug tested positive for COVID in North Carolina. So
Yes.
what do we need to consider? And also weigh in on, my understanding is it was transferred from owner to pet, not pet to owner.
Yes. Right. And so here's the thing. This is a new virus. We're learning about it. So, in both cases, there was probably a high virus load, like in New York, a lot of virus. In North Carolina, both parents were doctors, ER doctors. And so, the fomites can play a role in how you're bringing it in. A fomite is an inanimate object that can carry the virus, see? And so you can have the virus on your hands, and if you're petting your pet or, you're not washing your hands and stuff, you could potentially give it to your cat or dog and not even know. That's why we're saying wash your hands before you pet your cat or dog, wash them afterwards. If you're not feeling well, make sure you're not around your pets. Luckily, there's no evidence that the pets are then going to give it to people. All right. They might give it to another pet, but it would be rare for it then to go into a person because they're not the right vector for it. So people don't have to be worried that, all of a sudden the pets are going to, be a problem with it. But it's common sense, and treat them as one of the family members that you have.
That's a good reminder. Thank you. Because when I came home a couple weeks ago, I was looking at my cat and I thought I had not considered the impact I could have. And so I had started washing my hands. I think it was just instinctual, but thank you for that reminder. I have some questions that came in that I'd love for you to answer with us.
Great.
This first one asks, will it be hard for a newly adopted pet to transition to having more alone time when I get back to work eventually? And how do you make that process easier for them?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Yes. I think there will be an adjustment. There will be a little separation anxiety when now all of a sudden mom and dad are gone for long periods of time. But the good thing is animals adapt. They really do. So they'll get used to the new routine. Things you'd want to do is make sure when you come home, in addition to the loving them, do a lot of playing instead of using food. to, positively reinforce you coming home. But I think it'll be an easy transition because pets just adapt. They just want to be loved, so yeah, but that is a good question.
My cat's happy when I'm gone, so we're going to be fine.
I know. My cats are like, why are you here all the time?
Yeah.
Like, go away, go away.
Yeah, my little nugget's going to be just fine. All right, we have another question that came in. This one asks, can any animal be an emotional support animal, or is that only for dogs and cats? And what's the process like for getting papers for support animals? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. No, really, any animal can be a emotional support animal. So, but what you have to do is you have to take that emotional support animal to a psychiatrist. And then the psychiatrist interviews you, assesses the pet to make sure that it is truly needed for an emotional support animal. You hear of chickens, llamas, lizards. It's not just cat or dog. It's an animal that helps ground you when you get stressed.
I am in full support of that. I've worked with some patients that have thrived because of having access to the emotional support of an animal. So I'm so glad that that's offered. However, a lot of the airlines are struggling with some of that because, as you said, people trying to bring lizards and llamas on the airplane. So it gets a little funky there. But yeah. God bless it. Doc Halligan, thank you so much for being part of our show. Have a beautiful night.
Okay. Thank you so much. Stay safe. And thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. And there it is. Mental health, it's so important. Whatever we have to do to focus on that is what we need to be doing right now. Because again, we don't want to come out of this time worse off. And there's so many things that are available to us. As we talked about with AJ, there are books that are out there that we can use as workbooks to work on improving ourselves. We can adopt a pet. There are so many different animals that need a home, would love a home. They'd be happy to help you with your emotionality and soothing your nervous system. So just think a little more diverse and creative. We got to step outside the box. But again, there's so many things that are available to help you. At the end of the show, we'll be also putting up some resources, websites, and phone numbers for those that need a little extra support. And also, now's a great time to consider therapy. There's a lot of people that are jumping into my practice now, and I'm happy to be there for them. And they're doing some really beautiful, beautiful, powerful work. We'll be back again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific. That is 8 p.m. Eastern. As always, thanks for hanging out with me, and you all have a beautiful, beautiful night.